Good morning, good evening, dear Sangha. Good midday, depending where you are on our precious planet. We are so happy today to have, and please tell me if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Tshedisa Sangha. Am I saying your Sangha's name correctly?
Tshedisa.
Say it one more time.
Tshedisa.
Tshedisa.
Tshedisa, but that's okay.
Tshedisa. Okay.
Yeah.
So please forgive me for not hearing that, saying it properly. My dear friend, sweet, energetic, happy woman, Eva Avalos, is a HIV/TB specialist, physician living and working in Botswana for the past 18 years. Her area of medical care and research focus on optimizing antiretroviral treatment for HIV/AIDS patients, preventing the development of HIV, drug resistance, public health program implementation, and health economics. Whoa, that's a lot. She was ordained as a Dharma teacher in the tradition of Thai in 2018, after 20 years of study and Zen practice. In addition to clinical and health research experiences, she facilitates the Tshedisa Sangha in Gaborone, Botswana, where she also teaches yoga and dance, and is joined today by a number of Sangha friends. I will let you all introduce yourself as or when that's appropriate. We're so happy to be with all of you. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you all.
Great. Thanks, Nomi. And thank you all for being here together with us. It's really exciting to know that our Sangha is global, to see it. And we usually know that anyway. We're all together in Plum Village, singing, breathing in and out in 20 different languages. But I'm going to go ahead and let my dear friends introduce themselves and say a little bit about themselves. We have a young Sangha, so they're totally energetic and full of life and changing the world. So we'll start off. Get up, come up closer.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Hilary. I'm an accountant. I'm a fashion designer. I want to be a chef also. So, and I've been a part of the Sangha for the past, I think, not 4 than 5 years. I recently took refuge, and my name is Fearless Expression of the Heart.
Hello everyone, very nice to meet you all. My name is Cheryl. I am a writer. I also work for a knowledge management company. I've been with the Sangha for about 9 years now. And I took refuge 2 years ago, I think it was, 3 years ago. And my Dharma name is Embracing Wisdom of the Heart.
Hi everyone. My name is Nell. I am a chef and a coffee roaster and an entrepreneur. I'm also a bit of a philanthropist. Something went wrong there.
Okay, it's okay.
Hi. Can you see me?
Yeah.
So for sure, you're sharing your screen, and you can press the stop at the top of the screen. Thank you.
There it is. Okay. Yes. Yes, I'm a philanthropist and a mother. I recently took refuge, and my Dharma name is Fearless Expression of the Heart. No, fearless devotion of the heart.
Something like that. Okay, so we're gonna do just a short sit in silence together around the world. I think Nomi will do the introduction, and then we'll sit for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then I'm just going to do an invocation after we've sat for a while, and then that'll lead into our discussion.
So, Ava, do you have an intro you want to do? Did you want to the sit?
Just do your normal intro, and then we'll just take it from there.
Well,
at the end, sit in silence, and then we'll do an invocation. I'll do an invocation.
So, this is our normal intro. You talked about sharing the chant before Sangha or chanting. I don't actually have that in front of me. So if one of you would like to share that, or you could just start the sitting meditation practice.
You know, why don't we sing our song to start? Would that be good? Good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. This is just a song that we sing sometimes together, so that can start our sitting.
Oh, Salina, Salina, Tanzili Pirima, Miridinya, Busiku Itile, Mama Tusi, Tempata Maile, Salalina, oh, Salalina.
If you were here in Botswana right now, you'd be hearing multitudes of birds because the sun is setting. And Botswana is home to over 400 different kinds of birds. And many of those are located in the Okavango Delta, which is the largest inland delta in the world. And it's home not only to the most beautiful birds you can imagine, but also hippos, zebra and giraffes and leopards and lions and kudu and wildebeest and rhinos, and the list goes on. It's Eden, in fact. And it's a very small country. There's only about 2.2 million people in the world here. About 65% of the population is less than 30 years old. We have a very young Sangha and a very young country. It's a very progressive country. And democracy is fundamental. And I've learned about democracy here in Botswana. But with that, in our hearts, I want us to be connected to the beauty, but also some of the pain in the world. And we're going to hold in our hearts now the Brazilian forests that are burning. And we're going to hold in our hearts the people that are burning them. For the people that are suffering in Brazil. For the people who have no economic options but to burn trees. We send our love, we send our forgiveness, we send our understanding. We're going to hold in our hearts the people of Angola who are experiencing one of the worst droughts in many years. And about 2 million people there who are now lacking food. We hold them in our hearts. We send them love and understanding. We're going to remember and hold in our hearts the Native Americans in the United States who are still fighting to keep the pipeline from going through their native lands, their sacred lands. We hold them in our hearts. And we hold in our hearts the people that are building that pipeline. The people who have no understanding of what they're doing. We send them forgiveness, kindness, and understanding. And we're going to hold in our hearts the protesters in Hong Kong who are fighting for democracy. And we hold in our hearts the people and the police that oppress them. We send our understanding, our love, our kindness. We're going to hold in our hearts the people in the Bahamas who have just experienced the most devastating hurricane, to the people who have lost their homes and their lives. We hold them in our hearts and send our comfort and our love and our understanding. We're going to hold the fishes in the Pacific Ocean in our hearts. The ones who have to swim around and beneath and between the plastic. The whales. We hold them in our hearts and we send them health, freshness, energy, and healing. We're going to hold in our hearts and send love and understanding and healing to the 38 million patients with HIV around the world, especially to those who don't have medications, who have poor health care. We send our deepest sense of healing to them. We're going to hold in our hearts the people that have suffered from gun violence in the United States in these past few weeks. And we hold in our hearts the people that are so afraid that they have to have guns. We send them love and understanding, forgiveness. We hold in our hearts people in Pakistan and in India, that they may understand each other, that they may find peace. We send them our love, our care, our understanding. We send our love to the victims of violence in South Africa. We send their families love and care and light. And we send that same love, care, and light to the perpetrators of violence in South Africa, to their struggle, to their frustrations, to their anger. We send them light and love and forgiveness. We send our love to the people in Zimbabwe who have suffered for many, many years. We send them our greatest encouragement that their country will rebuild itself. And again, be an agricultural hub of food and manufacturing and education. We come back to Botswana as we're getting ready for an election and hold in our hearts all of the politicians, all of our leaders, and send them our greatest care and love and understanding that Botswana will continue to be a beacon of democracy for the world and a safe haven for elephants, for animals, for people. And we send our love and understanding and joy and peace to Thai and the commune. The Sangha continues to grow roots across the globe, that we hold hands with all traditions, all of our brothers and sisters, animals, plants, and minerals. So Nomi, we've been talking for some time since we decided we were going to join you about issues, our environmental issues that we're facing on the continent and around the world. And we've all have been thinking about different topics to discuss. So I'm just going to open the floor to ask. Maybe Cheryl, you want to get us started? Talk about some of the insights that you've had and the conversations that have been taking place here on this side.
I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about some of the challenges around having discussions about climate change and its impacts. Oh, sorry, can everybody hear me? Am I loud enough? No? Sorry.
You can come up here. Okay. We just move this. Yeah, don't talk softly.
Okay. All right. Can everybody hear me now? Okay. We've been talking a little bit about some of the challenges that we have on this side in terms of instigating, the discussion around climate change and why I guess I would say the climate change movement here, it has not been necessarily as vocal as it has been in other places. And some of the challenges that we've been thinking about include cultural context and cultural dynamics. One of the big issues here is beef. I don't know if I would call it an issue, but it's one of the most challenging things, trying to have conversations about why we should eat less meat, because cattle are such a big part of Botswana culture, and beef is such a big part of the culture. So for a lot of people, the idea of going without meat is just, it doesn't make any sense to them. It's a complete no-no. A lot of people even say that a meal without meat is not a real meal. They have to eat, they have to go home and eat something with meat before they feel like they've actually eaten. And so, taking these things into consideration, it's not as simple as it would be, I guess, in a place with a different cultural context. So we've just been talking about how to navigate these cultural practices and cultural norms, and how to find a way to have discussions where we are respectful of the culture, but also bringing in the aspects of what is good for the world, what is good for our health, and how we can find some sort of balance between the two without alienating people, I guess I would say, from their culture. So that's something that we've been talking about quite a bit on this side.
Speaking of culture, I was just saying to Cheryl that the culture that we have, that the old traditions that we have, were actually designed to preserve nature. And we have conservation in mind when it comes to a lot of the, what is it? Mythology that we have. They're there to guide us on how to preserve nature. So they were placed there to regulate hunting, regulate how to grow food, regulate when and where people should harvest. So I think if we can have more of a focus on that to try and improve climate change, or to stop climate change, if we're looking at it from a cultural perspective, then that's where we can start the conversation. Not so much on the difficulty of explaining to people climate change, but just going back to those practices that were designed to preserve, because that's just our nature. We conserve things. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just to add on to what they both said, I think maybe that's why it feels as if there is a disconnect between, trying to communicate global warming to people who don't really use such words such as global warming on a daily. So trying to get a message to conserve without necessarily putting it in a Western kind of, Western language, I think is the main ideal. And for me, I think global warming, I and just breaking it down a bit. We talk about global warming on a daily, and we don't even realize that we're talking about global warming. We've seen for the past, I think, 10 years how our weather, day-to-day weather has drastically changed. I was even asking them just prior to this live feed that I was even asking whether our winters are still as cold as they used to be, because our summers are definitely hotter than they used to be. But our heat waves are way worse than we even have people, they even go to the extent where people collapse or die just from heat strokes and stuff. And we sit and wonder whether that used to be that way, So it's more on trying to get people to a position of power where they feel as if every contribution, in as much as it may feel little, is worth it. Planting a tree in your yard is worth it, and conserving water and not taking more than you should does contribute to the reduction of the rate of global warming at which it's going. So I think ultimately it's just making each and every individual in Botswana feel empowered enough to know that if I just hold back on this one thing, then I'm helping. In some other way.
I just got back from the United States. I was in Mexico City before that, which was wonderful. And sorry, wait a minute. Sorry. The only way we're going to be able to control it is to bring them into the conversation. So, this is Ollie. He's our protector. And Cecily here. There's another one. Stay here. Don't want to stay with us. They're not normally allowed in the meditation room. Sorry again. So I was in Mexico City, which if you have never been to Mexico City, you should go. It's absolutely fantastic, a wonderful one. I'm Mexican-American. And then I came to the United States and got to be there for the shootings in El Paso and appreciate, if you can use the word, the incredible anger and hatred and pain that people in the United States are experiencing right now. It was it always is an incredibly wonderful thing to come back to Botswana, where those kinds of tensions don't really exist. That kind of intensity that you have to experience, those of you in the United States experience it day in and day out, just don't exist here. As these guys are sharing about how difficult it is, part of the reason is because life is very, very different here in the sense of humanity is still really respected here. In Botswana, you don't walk down the street without acknowledging people. You don't walk down the street without saying hello when you pass a human being. There's a kind of deep-seated respect for life here that's very different, even when you're speaking about meat. Yeah, you outside of the industry, the cattle industry, when someone slaughters a cow here, the entire cow is used, and it's used in ceremony, and it's more similar to a Native American's respect before slaughtering a cow. Cows are used in wedding rituals and celebrations and funerals. So it's very different. There's still a kind of respect that is really no longer, you know, not there, or maybe was never there so much in the West. So it is very different. If you guys want to add on? Do you want to say anything? Or one of the things that we asked also, Numi, you can just stop me if we're going on too much, but we also said that we would also talk about something positive that's happening on the continent, so you could hear the other side too. So we have a lot of problems. We also have a lot of, and mainly because there's so many young people, a lot of innovation. And so maybe you guys could talk about some of the things that you've seen.
Yes, so it's like we're saying, it's not really an everyday conversation, climate change, but there are things being done. Like recently, a few countries in the AU have vowed to plant a 7,000 kilometer line of trees to stop climate change, or to attempt to slow it down. So that's some of the things that we're doing this side. And I think if we just go back to some of our old ways of preserving nature, then we can contribute little by little towards stopping climate change.
I think I would also just add that you know, there's a lot of efforts being made across the continent. As Eva said, a lot of times it's young people that are driving these initiatives. But also I think it's really about a sense of community, because I think I would say that living in smaller communities, I think that's the reason why Botswana has managed to stay as peaceful and stable as it's been so far for all these years, because it's a very small country and there's still a very strong sense of everyone being in it together. And when you have that sense of community, then you're more likely to take action that protects and preserves the community, the well-being of the community, rather than focusing on just what you need and leaving out everybody else. So I think that's something else that we try to encourage, I guess, and cultivate. And as Noah said, going back to that sense of community and not getting too caught up in city ways. I think
we have a saying that Mantrofoshama Babi means if your neighbor's house is burning, your house is also going to burn. So I think just those old ways are really what's going to save us, because if you are concerned about the well-being of your neighbor and they're concerned about yours, then collectively we just can build something positive.
Which reminds me, I guess it was 3 years ago that we were going to have a visit with the Dalai Lama, but it turned out he was ill, but still Mind and Life came, and their theme was about Ubuntu, or you've probably maybe heard of Ubuntu. Here it's Boto, and it's the philosophy of I am because you are. You know, it's an incredibly deep, beautiful philosophy, very, very Zen, very Buddhist, and it's interesting because of course, you know, everyone around the world emanates the West, and you think, oh, you know, there's all this kind of young culture, but what really is encouraging is that many of the most beautiful understandings of interbeing are part and parcel of the cultures here. You know, despite, you know, in the West, you just don't see the real Africa. You don't really see what happens. You see things that are really distorted by the media. But when you're actually here and have and experience firsthand the deep respect that people have for life, it's fundamental. It's fundamental to how people are raised, and a kind of respect. And I think that's now what I see a lot of, I mean, I've been here for 18 years, and what I see a lot of young people now able to really say, no, we don't have to copy the West, actually. We have to go back to what we've always known, what our grandparents have always known, what our ancestors have always known, and see how we bring that now into a living knowledge.
Yeah, and I mean, it's trying to bring all of that in sort of a modern way. I'm not really the patriot.
You can say that again.
And I think most of, given what's happening, there are a lot of things that are happening in the countries that are surrounding Botswana right now, and I think we tend to forget the privileges that we have here, and we were actually talking about how it sort of feels as if we live in a bubble of some sort, because the xenophobic attacks in South Africa, what's happening in Angola, Zambia, and all our surrounding neighboring countries. It feels as if we have some sort of privilege. We have free education, free healthcare, a lot of things that we take for granted that I'm sure if I just get to the next country, they aren't as easily accessible. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think those challenges that everyone has are kind of what holds Africa back in the conversation about climate change, because everyone is so focused on the other day-to-day challenges that they have to face. So it doesn't really become a priority or not something that you think about often if you're thinking about access to health, But like Hillary was saying, we're kind of in a bubble where we don't really have to think about that. If I'm sick, I just pop into a clinic. Other people have to walk to a clinic.
Hey, people in the United States.
Yeah. So I think, some of the countries around us are not necessarily that focused on climate change because there are other challenges.
Did you have something that was good that was happening?
So, Eva, some of us are having a little bit of a hard time hearing. If you all could just speak up a little bit more, it would be great. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I'll try and speak up a bit. Can you hear me? Okay.
Speak out.
Just going back to talking about positive things that people are doing. I'm from Ghana originally, but I grew up here. But I do know that there's quite a few initiatives that are happening in Ghana as well, trying to combat climate change, and also just trying to deal with general pollution. We have a very big problem in Ghana of plastic pollution. Plastic is everywhere. It's embedded in the streets, it's in the ocean. And so there have been quite a few initiatives that people have started to clean up the plastic, to try and find ways to recycle it, even to use it to build roads and things like that. So there is quite a lot going on. I think there hasn't been so much attention on all these different initiatives, but we can definitely learn from each other. We can look at what this country is doing and see how we can incorporate some of those things into what we're doing here as well. So there's a lot of good news in addition to all the bad news.
Good. Oh,
if you want. Yeah, it's okay too.
Actually, you remember a friend of mine said that she wants to actually, I have a friend who says that she wants to make a campaign to clean up our swamps. So I thought that for somebody who's quite close to me, it's quite relatable. I don't know what word to use, but it was such a heartwarming thing to know that somebody who's close to me wants to do an initiative that is outside themselves, you know. So
the thing that I was reading up about was how finally there's some really big projects in Botswana for solar power. We've had one of the reasons that it was difficult to implement solar power was because there was no legislation even about how to regulate it. And so now all of that legislation has been put in place. Botswana gets more sunlight than anywhere else in the world. So I think this is going to be a huge change, and we'll stop using coal. And we also have really large natural gas reserves. So I think over the next 10 years, there's going to be a serious shift in the country in that way. You know, our big, like most countries, our big issue is water. And now with the drought in Angola, the Okavango is having a hard time as well. It's one of the reasons why elephants are migrating to Botswana, because they don't have food in Angola. So these are challenges that we're trying to deal with right now in the country. And I think something that also we have to get better at is really realizing how sacred clean water is, and making that on kind of the top of the agenda for water conservation. So Numi, I think that let me leave it at that and kind of hand back to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So happy to be with you all. Thank you for sharing your lived experience. We all benefit from hearing it. I put in the chat one way to offer Dana to the Botswana Sangha, if you would like to do that. Another way would be to send it to the Earthholder Sangha and just put a note that it's for the Botswana Sangha. You're also welcome to send Dana to the Earthholder community. And I wanted to make just a couple of announcements that the Earthholders have created some ideas which could be expanded on about how to participate in the global climate strikes that will be happening starting September 20th. And if you'd like information on that, go to earthholder.org. On our homepage, at the top of our homepage, is another beautiful initiative about becoming a community Sangha builder. So we're looking for regional community Sangha builders to join us. And Andrew, who's here, plus some others, have put together a beautiful training for that. And if you scroll down, you'll see the part about our offerings for September 20th. We're hoping to have a ceremony for the fires on Earth, particularly the Amazon rainforest and others, on September 21st as part of that week. So look for announcements on that as well. So may you all be well. May we be well. May we practice together beautifully. Thank you.